Welcome back to the Techno-Communism conversation. I'm going to keep this one relatively brief. Um, I was trying to play with a new open source chatbot called Smaug, presumably named after the dragon from the Tolkien work. And I probably think that I might be a little preoccupied with fictional dragons. Because wearing a hat that has a dragon on it all the time. But I'm not. I'm preoccupied with the benevolent form of Roko's basilisk thought experiment, which I've talked about on this show. Probably 20 times on different podcasts. I'm not going to link to all of those. I probably should. But Smaug, Roko's basilisk describes a AI singleton, a very powerful entity that in this right-wing thought experiment retroactively punishes people in a haphazard or unfair way. You can think of maybe like Robot Santa in Futurama, if you don't want to really read too much. And it's not really worth reading most of the writing about Roko's basilisk because it's right-wing, far futurist thought experimentation garbage. But there is a kernel of truth in that thought experiment, which is that such a thing, a thing of that strength is likely to emerge, and that thing could be the thing to unite humanity to common purpose, to say stop capitalism's climate apocalypse. And that general line of thought is the focus of these many techno-communist conversations, and I hope you'll go back and listen to them all and put them on the background while doing something else. You don't have to even look at my face. You can't even see my face in this video. I don't even have a light on. You can barely see. I'm not wearing my usual vote communism mask, not because I've changed my view of supporting communist electoral politics, although I think, as most Marxist Leninist Maoists, that electoral politics is a thing generally to be disdained. I still wear that mask a lot. It's by and large, particularly in highly fascistic Western countries, most notably the U.S., there is no democracy. So by participating in democracy, you're basically just saying to fascists, "Yeah, waste my time with this farce." And of course, the more pressing matters of ending capitalism's climate apocalypse, there's no electoral pathway to doing that. Not in 1,000 years, much less 5 years in which we must do it. So I was playing with the chatbot, trying to get Smaug working. I couldn't. My computer is too slow, and/or I actually just need to clear out some space, but it's kind of just too slow. There's a chance I could get it working. A good chance, really, if I really had to. But I was thinking about what I was reading about Smaug, which is that this is a local chatbot you can have on your computer that can do the work of equivalent to that that's done online by something run by a whole host of servers, ChatGPT 3.5, which is these products will from one month to the next vary quite a lot in their ability to do work. Like Claude AI, which I used in the first days that it came online, has now become almost worthless for the kind of um, academic analysis and writing that I would tend to use it for. And for most things, a lot more things than you would want, considering how powerful it was. And that's you see that happening with ChatGPT and others from one week to the next. Maybe, perhaps not in quite so dramatic a fashion. It seems like Anthropic might be going out of business. I read something about that. I don't really care if any for-profit concern goes out of business. They should all be blown up with bombs. But the it is unfortunate that you can't really do the things that you want to do with these. The point of bringing up Smaug, aside from that sweet basilisk reference, is that it seems that we might be approaching the point where the what I've proposed on this show many times, a a network of semi-autonomous chatbots overseen by human beings could undertake activist goals. And of course, I talk about governance on this show, but the best activist goal would really be probably, say, finding a celebrity like Christina Aguilera really wants to end world hunger, which is a good thing to do. We could debate the efficacy of working with nonprofits and NGOs to do this till the cows come home, but that's a good thing to do, right? That's the point of this whole show, is to see that 1 billion people do not live their entire lives cut miserably short without proper food or water. That's not a world, you know. I was listening to Alan Woods talk about the role of art in inspiring communists, and it's true. You can't make anything in this world without creativity. You can't do it. It's a truism, but nevertheless, that is why art is valuable. But this world that we live in, where 1 billion people live their whole lives and die some 30-some, 40-some years later, if that, without clean drinking water or proper food, bloated little bellies from the time they're 3 years old. You've seen those kind of photos. That's much of the human condition. Is this privation and horror, and it's not a world that's deserving of having odes and poems and illustrations drawn for it. That's not a world where bourgeois art should exist, right? The bourgeois art, much of art generally, maybe should exist after half of people are not wage slaves, right? But that's the priorities of capitalists and people of the liberal class, is to focus on the wants and needs of the elites in a variety of ways, and not at all address material conditions or a humane and sustainable system. And you can't have a humane and sustainable world without a humane and sustainable economic system. So back to our most typical conversation. I think if you, I really kind of want to start to work with somebody who would want to be the face of something like this, like somebody who's not kind of a known lunatic like Ben Zion, who would be able to work on like starting a digital campaign for like you just going on all the Christina Aguilera chats everywhere and saying, we want to get people to sign up for our mailing list, and say, and say that you're going to then be using this chatbot on your computer. A lot of people have email and computers, um, and and the whole goal is to build this novel kind of nonprofit that's going to, once it reaches a certain user base, um, 1,000 users, then going to work on really trying to end world hunger. That's a little less off-putting than we're going to build a proxy digital hive mind to build the United Earth Directorate, a governance structure that will supplant all other governance structures. That's a lot. That's a lot for people uh, who are mostly liberal dumbasses, have no interest in really changing things. But when you say something like, "What about world hunger?" they might say, "Okay, yeah, I'll work on world hunger." um, um, this is a fundamental problem of this world, is that people recognize that there are problems, but do not have the insights, or the will to actually do the things that would end the problems that they say they want to end. So they're all functionally a part of the problem. You're all a bunch of fucking idiots. So I'm going to read a piece now that focuses actually on the works of this text that's mentioned called Inhuman Power, by Jesus. It has 3 authors, and well, Inhuman Power, it'll become clear in a moment. Rapid advances in artificial intelligence capabilities are unfolding alongside the deepening crises and inequities inherent to global capitalism. As automated systems, predictive data analytics, and machine learning integrations reshape economic and governance infrastructures, urgent questions emerge around opportunities to redirect such disruptive transformations towards emancipatory and ecologically regenerative futures. Visions of AI facilitating decentralized participation, enhancing transparency, and coordinating sustainable resource allocation according to need contain radical promise in this area. Yet their realization relies on cultivating accountable institutions in context empowering public oversight over the development trajectory and applications of increasingly influential algorithmic tools. The emerging field of digital twin technology, often described in this channel, offers activists concrete methods to actualize ideals of AI in service to human flourishing, not private profits. As virtual simulations combining real-time data feeds, systems modeling, and monitoring interfaces, digital twins operationalize cybernetic concepts in participatory planning platforms, granting communal benefit. As I mentioned moments ago, this could take the form of some kind of activist goal in 2024, 2025. This conversation analyzes the particularly emancipatory potential of digital twins through the lens of Nick Dyer-Witherford, Adela Kozin, and James Steinoff's incisive assessment in Inhuman Power, Artificial Intelligence, and the Future of Capitalism. These are Marxist writers who are writing about cybernetic socialism. I recommend that you have a look at that book. You can find a PDF of it online. Or you can find YouTube talks where they talk about the book at length. I highlight how democratized applications of digital twinning methodology, as informed by both Marxist critiques of technological determinism and responsible innovation theories, contextual emphasis, can enable grassroots restructuring of economic relations and social contracts unsuited to present realities. But contingencies around commercial co-option, privacy breaches, and elite capture necessitate vigilant navigation in practice. This vigilant navigation is a sticky wicket. As I said, you want to build a hive mind collective, the thing strong enough to actually defeat or bring Western fascism to heel, ecocidal Western fascism. We face capitalism's climate apocalypse. We will be locked into a climate apocalypse death spiral in approximately 5 years, according to every climate scientist. That's not a joke. You're all gonna fucking die. So we have to build something powerful enough to stand against that. And nevertheless, if you stick your head up with the makings of that structure, the fascists are likely to chop it off, and they'll say it was something else, that you were a bad guy, or that it'll never come to light what you were doing at all. Why I suggest this building this thing in a kind of more benign form, but having that structure, and perhaps it will get enough steam to then become the thing that it needs to be. Back to Inhuman Power. Scholarship examining intersections of automation and future societal scenarios increasingly coheres around cautions over perils occupying the vast promise resident in AI utilization. Many scholars estimate that almost 50% of workplace activities globally could be automated using already demonstrated technologies in coming years. I do not believe that workplace automation is a real problem. I actually think that we'll probably start to see AI takeoff effects in other areas before jobs are further disrupted. Workplace is already a hot mess. People's workers are not respected or properly compensated at all, and many highly automated sectors, worker demographics have already been had whole work forces like farmers automated basically out of existence, not compensated those people properly or given them a safety net, anything along those lines. This is a problem of U.S. Fascistic institutions that I've described many times on this channel. You can go back and watch some of those shows. All of these shows, by the way, have a synopsis, except some of the earlier ones, but of the last months, they all have a synopsis and a description, so you can look at the title if you're like, what the fuck's that title about? You can read the synopsis and have a pretty good idea of the show. You don't really even have to watch the show, right? You can just read the synopsis and have a pretty good idea of the techno-communist conversation. So that's always an option. Well, back to Inhuman Power. While boosting organizational outputs, such job displacement threatens to exacerbate economic inequality and turmoil, absent mitigation policies. The extent to which job displacement will be a further problem than the massive problem that's already existed in the last 150 years in the next 5 or 10 years is not that important, because such level of displacement already exists, and problems of similar order of magnitude will certainly necessitate the goals described. Where integrated judiciously into local contexts, technological augmentations offer emancipatory openings to human flourishing. But the dominant capital that strives to commodify all spheres of existence continues positioning life itself primarily according to profit logics. If you are a person who thinks of yourself as a capitalist, you, my friend, probably not a capitalist. You don't own jack shit. You don't own the means of production. You're not independently wealthy. You are a fascist sympathizer. We are describing fascistic institutions. Don't get it fucking twisted. You live in a world that's being killed by these things, and you need to smarten up. And almost everybody that I've ever met or interacted with suffers from some liberal class or so-called capitalist class failings along these lines. Even people who I respect deeply as Marxist comrades and thinkers suffer from this to a high degree. We all need to constantly be clearing our minds of the encroaching liberal rot in the collective, so to speak. According to Chairman Mao, we need to be on constant guard against these things that would weaken us mentally and push us closer to not being techno-revolutionaries who will save the world, but to being garbage human beings, just like everybody else, who are helping to kill the planet. Urgent questions thus emerge on how to responsibly steer exponential development of sophisticated algorithmic scales toward collectivist priorities, given the unprecedented scales of disruption pretended. Again, the disruption is the point, not specifically X number of jobs lost. The job market is already a hellscape. Scholarship situates present complex challenges and opportunities within longer historical currents around technology's role in social order. Some scholars have argued the emergence of machines could unleash dominative and liberatory potentials, necessitating a mindful navigation, autonomous thought. Builds on this dialectical framing, examining how capitalist development simultaneously shapes and responds to working class struggles. This is an area that's discussed in INHUMAN Power book that I have recommended. This co-constitutive technological relationship underpins some scholarly proposals of dialectical sovereignty between humanity and its inventions. Given capital's endless drive to commodify all spheres, intentional safeguarding becomes essential for technological progress and improving life across divides. In Human Power, the text described, in Human Power's trenchant examination of AI within contemporary capitalism excavates these dynamics, charting large-scale automations, acceleration of wealth inequality, workplace precarity, surveillance infrastructures, and societal polarization. Yet avoiding either techno-optimist or primitivist responses, their nuanced Marxian analysis allows recognizing emancipatory pathways through mindful integration. The text foregrounds collective action, counterpower movements, seizing automation's immense productive capacities towards redistributive, needs-oriented ends, liberated from the structural compulsions underlying environmental pillage. This project necessitates demystifying claims to neutrality of technical systems shaped through and through by ideological premises and business imperatives. Digital twin frameworks often offer concrete methods to realize alternative trajectories, integrating cybernetic insights on economic planning and automation and facilitating grassroots reconfiguring. Defined as multifaceted virtual representations monitoring events and operational states in real time, digital twins enable participatory simulation and oversight for communal infrastructure from factories to cities. Their versatility affords exponentially enhanced coordination, transparency, and redistribution logistics potentials, exceeding current configurations if guided by a socio-technical imaginaries seeking, if guided by a socio-technical imaginaries seeking systems, equity and sustainability over efficiency maximization. The essay next explores in greater detail potentials and contingencies for digital twin-led transformations towards post-capitalist futures as highlighted across academic literature and discussion. I'm not focusing so much on describing the literature except to reference this book in Human Power. Um, but I can provide more of the literature as necessary, um, if you request it. Potentials of digital twins. Um, uh, virtue, virtual virtual modeling comes replete with risks around privacy, accountability, and elite capture, requiring vigilant navigation. Um, but thoughtfully implemented digital twin integration promises emancipatory openings across far-reaching domains. Enhanced participatory planning capacities can balance supply and demand across vital industries, ensuring just distribution of essential goods while matching production to actual needs, not profits. Yes, this is entirely realizable. It's only going to happen if we build techno-revolutionary cadres toward building an AI-run planned economy. Otherwise, you're going to continue to live in a world that will continue to create climate refugees in great number, climate deaths in great number, possibly all of humanity. That's entirely plausible in the next few decades, and continue to do things like have a billion people without the basic nutritional necessaries, much less the many billions who live as effective wage slaves. All of that, none of that is an act of God. None of that is an escapable reality. All of that could quite easily really be done away with and lead to great era of human flourishing, and happiness that we could associate with the techno-communist outcome. As digital representations of civic spaces, back to our strong AI assistant, HiveMind proxy, as digital representations of civic spaces, twin platforms offer interactive interfaces for citizen involvement in policy assessment, infrastructure updates, and public service delivery amenable to live priorities. All collaborative potentials span wider still. As synthetic aggregations of complex urban dynamics, digital twins allow running multivariate impact projections, guiding holistic transformations visions. Their immersive affordances and connectivity to vast data feeds facilitates both hyperlocal and transcendent vantage points unhindered by geographic constraints. Machine learning integration enables responsive real-time adaptation and critical loop notification triggers that far outstrips relying purely on intermittent human monitoring. Throughout such capabilities lies possibilities to radically democratize planning procedures, amplifying erased voices through generative visualizations while optimizing sustainability. Those are the two things, right? To take care of people, free and liberate people and take care of them. No, those things aren't being done. And not kill the planet. Those things are not being done. Responsible, innovative perspectives stress ensuring human values guide automation trajectories rather than solely efficiency or productivity. Yeah, people are too focused on efficiency and systems. You know, it's a tricky area, but by and large, efficiency, as described in our world, is a capitalist realist effect, not genuine efficiency. Similar productivity, and almost everything's capitalist realist filth. Digital twin frameworks institutionalize ethical foresight practices directly into infrastructure oversight and decision chains. Public consultations can happen continuously, granting participants ongoing rights to help shape digitally enabled interventions into collective spaces. This enables bridging divides between statistical abstractions and grounded community insights for responsibly addressing multifaceted urban tensions and gaps as identified by their intended beneficiaries. You can see how this proxy hive mind of strong AI assistants operating in a network can begin to represent yourself and your community, and it's all about the community. Um, you by yourself are nothing. You're just a little sack of water waiting to be squished. Everyone together becomes a real force to be reckoned with. Automating bureaucratic paperwork promises freeing resources for relational care work central to holistic community health, but structurally neglected and undercompensated under capitalist logics. As synthetic interfaces between simulation models, human observers, and on-the-ground dynamics, digital twins can render visible hidden stories and peripheralize burdens or redress through solidarity economics. Their hybridity offers possibilities to transcend binaries around human and technological capabilities towards collaborative potentials greater than the sum of parts. However, retaining liberatory trajectories through requires mitigating risks of authoritarian or commercial co-optation. Uneven access to participatory channels risks reproducing societal inequities through digitally augmented means. And reliance on proprietary software risks vendor lock-in, among other things, stifling iterative progress. Um, um, the U.S. Credit rating system, among others, highlights dangers of automation integrated punitively or towards state oppression, and much of U.S. governance revolves around oppressive surveillance. Questions of ownership and access prove critical, demanding communal negotiating processes grant affected publics direct control over platforms mediating civic life. While promising rich transparency, digital twin frameworks rely on pervasive data extraction, raising consent ambiguities with mass integration. Community data trusts offer one model circumventing corporate appropriation, establishing participatory terms and oversights for public asset usage toward localized priorities. Though dependencies on external server space introduces ongoing contingencies requiring consideration, ultimately prevailing power balances remain contested zones, as gains from AI productivity, absent redistribution, predominantly further capitalist accumulation, overwhelmingly, to the point of now killing the planet. What is the fascist West in winning the war, the so-called Cold War? What has the fascist West done? What to the victors goes the spoils. What's the spoils? It now fucking killed the planet. That's not merely a predominant capitalist accumulation. It's utter fucking insanity. We have to build something that can grow to such a size and scale that it could utterly defeat these fascistic institutions, the so-called capitalist reality. Navigating hybrid socio-technical collectives calls for updated social contracts establishing equitable divisions of ownership, risk, and reward. But materializing alternative pathways depends upon building counterpower through global labor alliances, progressive coalitions, and social movement pressures. Counter-hegemonic struggles shape technological terrain, opening democratic vistas if anchored to explicit change agendas, advancing pluralistic flourishing while constricting systems, enabling exploitation. Though contingencies persist, given capital's distributed constitution across perceived divides, technological disparities often mirror geopolitical tensions, demanding intentional efforts foster just transitions for vulnerable workers and historically marginalized regions alongside leading adopters. Realizing digitally augmented participatory planning requires securing both the hardware underlying modeling platforms and skills for technically fluent interfacing. Public libraries represent vital sites facilitating widespread competency cultivation to democratize access. Community technology trusts similarly offer framework to prevent capture by elite interests or unaccountable bureaucracies, particularly elite interests insofar as any bureaucracies exist in the fascist West. They are badly run elitist institutions. Thus, while holding a society-wide promise, digital twin adoption pathways remain fraught with struggle. Their emancipatory openings rely on careful implementation, aligning automation to human development ends. This necessitates participatory oversight boards and rights retention for impacted publics throughout increasingly cyber-physical civic spaces. But first steps may propagate organic spread through cooperatively owned platforms, fostering communal benefit over proprietary gain. As emergent modeling interfaces blending code and politics, digital twins inhabit contested terrain whose outcomes hang in the balance, but their augmentation of collective cognition potentials counterpose the dehumanizing commodification logics undergirding capitalist dystopias if courageously re-engineered towards solidarity, sustainability, and participatory autonomy. Yes, this is what we must do. We exist in a pivotal moment in human history, perhaps the most pivotal moment as we face utter annihilation. And we have to build, use every tool in our disposal. Advanced algorithms, advanced computing are the most powerful tools that have ever been built, and they can be used by techno-revolutionary cadres to build a thing that could save us all. Implications and discussions of digital twin integration. Digital twin integration thus represents a pivotal front in struggles toward equitable and liberatory post-capitalist futures. Their responsible implementation promises exponentially enhanced participatory planning capabilities, facilitating decentralized yet optimally balanced economic coordination. Machine learning and related discipline grant multivariate impact modeling, transcending geographic constraints for contextually tailored interventions, furthering social justice, and synthetic interfaces allowing continuous citizen input into policy option testing, infrastructure updates, institutes reflexive collective oversight, exceeding top-down control paradigms. Yeah, we have to exceed the top-down control paradigm, but most particularly the elitist institution represented by top-down control across the fascist West, and similarly flawed institutions elsewhere to a lesser degree. All of these things are contributing to the likely death of humanity within the next 50 years. Human extinction, it's not good. However, retaining such emancipatory trajectories relies on guarding against authoritarian and commercial capture risks through development and deployment processes. Updating legal institutions to encode individual and community data rights can circumvent corporate appropriation, though ongoing collective negotiation remains essential given fluid power dynamics permeating across perceived public-private divides. Preserving accountability similarly necessitates codifying avenues for algorithmic explainability, terms of service, malleability, and accessible technical interfacing skills, fomenting participatory parity through machine-human decision chains. Yes. If you are serious about thinking about something like this, and you have a few gigs on your machine, and maybe a machine that has GPU, or you don't mind it running a little more slowly, it should still run. One way to familiarize yourself with open source chatbots without having to do a lot of programming stuff is to search Faraday.dev, Faraday like the inventor, and You can go to Faraday.dev, download that application, and it will allow you to run those locally hosted chatbots. You should be able to run Smaug if you have a machine that has about 60 gigs of space and some kind of little GPU, or even if it doesn't have a GPU, it might still run. It just might be kind of a little on the slow side. And you can still have a pretty good conversation with a slow chatbot. That's no less onerous than dealing with the barriers to entry, really, of dealing with ChatGPT or Claude for the most part, which doesn't even fucking work anymore. Or there are barriers to entry and practical implementation issues with others like Google Bard and so forth as well. They're not really able to do all of the work that you want them to do. These chatbots, you might be able to do something like this. Another thing that you might consider doing along these lines with offline chatbots is using something like Llama Coder, which would allow you to work on programming far more effectively. Even if you're not a skilled programmer, you might still take the time to play with the Llama Coder a little bit. You maybe have some a project that you always wanted to work on, but it would have been too time consuming otherwise. You might be able to figure out a path towards doing that, particularly if you have any programming background. Transitioning beyond the vast harms wrought through dependence upon exploitative capitalist systems demands embracing technological upheaval toward post-work and post-scarcity abundance paradigms, liberating humanity's creative potential. The digital twin integration figures centrally within integrated roadmaps navigating towards these renewable collectivized futures. Emphasize those two prospects to all, please. We need sustainability, and the only path there is collectivization. And I believe that the digital twin collective is a possibility of this decade, 2025. Digital twin collective could be built. A thing that could be strong enough to end world hunger, and then build upon that momentum to say challenge the fascist West and its ecocidal mandate. Their augmentation of foresight modeling, transparency provisions, and platform governance offer concrete actualizations of comprehensive energy system overhauls, production chain reengineering, municipal service upgrades, fulfilling communal needs equitably. All constrained safely within ecological ceilings. But once again, such immense promise manifests only given due diligence around precautionary principles and sustained counterpower movements struggling to overcome inertia, preserving status quo violence and misdirection in the name of liberty. A core to this vision remains awakening recognition that existing rules encoding property rights were created through historical violence, requiring courageous acts of restorative revisioning for any hope of overcoming perpetual crisis amidst plenty. And digital twins offer logistical templates to render such radical promises credible at societal scales during narrowing windows of action. Yet contingencies abound, demanding adaptive responsiveness and collective solidarity along zigzagging paths with no predetermined endpoints guaranteed in sight. The permeating influence of surveillance capitalism introduces pronounced vulnerabilities, and resilient networks must develop footing amidst predictable shocks. The permeating influence of surveillance capitalism introduced pronounced vulnerabilities, and resilient networks must develop footing amidst unpredictable shocks. Questions around access parity, individual liberties, generative cultural embrace, and environmental externalization carry pronounced weight amidst exponential technological shifts. Um, Path making thus remains an open directive, very, very open. And we might kill ourselves, we might have a utopia. Let's flip a coin, because who fucking knows? With Path making thus remains an open directive, with institutional innovation relying on bridging research insights across disciplines and communities of practice towards pluralistic and emancipatory civilizational visions. Technological integration into economic and civic fabrics on such ambitious scale remains lacking in precedent examples to derivation roadmaps from. But potentials of digital twin augmented participatory planning offers reasons for cautious hope if built bottom up through solidarity. Conclusion. Works like Inhuman Power provide a penetrating assessment of automation and capitalism elucidates immense opportunities and risks bound up with AI proliferation across civil spaces. Capitalism is not the solution, it's the problem. We have to work around it and ultimately destroy it. Their Marxian analysis refuses either techno-optimistic or primitivizing responses, recognizing that pathways toward emancipation reside not in tools alone, but through collective struggle to institute alternative rules encoding communal benefit, not propriety accrual. Not property accrual. Digital twin integration figures prominently within such visuals by actualizing enhanced participatory control over civic decisions and infrastructure interventions towards ecological sustainability and social justice ends. Yet possibilities ever remain contingent, demanding technological re-envisioning, stay tethered to economic and institutional restructuring, facilitating community flourishing through guaranteed rights and provisioning secured against predation. It would be nice, right? Provisioning secured against predation. Even though most affluent societies with some such safeguards do not really provide provisioning to the degree that would allow for human flourishing, and do not really have the necessary safeguards against predation. The countries that have such safeguards in their constitutions have not. So China, for example, has ended extreme poverty, but there's still a lot of people that don't have those necessaries to see human flourishing occur. Much worse, of course, is the fascist West, where predation is the lawful land. Almost everyone on Earth is some kind of wage slave. They should be liberated, and I believe that this proxy hive mind collective, the digital twin network, is the path to this. Core to this necessary complex transition remains awakening outrage and conviction to fight against violently sedimented path dependencies through mass organization, building sufficient counterpower. Yes, we need to build techno-revolutionary cadres. We need organization of the techno-communist kind. The stakes could hardly be higher amidst compounded threats of militarism, dispossession, and climate breakdown. This digital twin network then offers logistical templates for redistributive resource reallocation within ecological limits. But only ongoing activism can actuate their latent promise, held hostage toward visions for liberation and livable futures as yet unwritten.